If you like wreaking havoc upon your enemies in a power fantasy you just don't get from your boring life, then you're in the right place. In this video I'll be showing you the top 5 free action games on Steam you don't know about. Part 2. Part 1 is linked in the description. Gladio and Glory is a physics-based combat game where you upgrade your gladiator as you fight arenas of opponents. The campaign mode called Gladiatorium has you start at level 1 and progress to the end, getting checkpoints every 5 levels along the way. Every arena type has different hazards, enemies, and weapons, which makes each level feel unique. There's different goals to each fight as well. A lot of the fights just have you go until you're the last one standing, but there's also fights where the only goal is to kill the one powerful enemy or have different factions fight each other, for example. It's a very chaotic game since the physics are intentionally janky. This leads to a lot of hilarious moments since you don't have a lot of control over your gladiator. Even though it's janky, there's definitely skill to it because of your moveset. You can pick up and throw weapons, grab opponents, dodge roll, and sprint around. As you progress further into the Gladiatorium, you unlock armor, which increases your character's size, health, damage, and throw force. If you're looking for a funny, intentionally janky game with a lot of variety, then I recommend Gladio and Glory. Metamorphose is a Souls-like hack-and-slash style game where you cleanse the temple from an evil force corrupting it. You play as one of the temple's guardians and progress through a series of combat encounters trying to make it to the next rest area. You have a light attack and heavy attack, which work well in different scenarios, as well as a teleport-style dodge. You can't just spam your attacks and dodge though, because you have an energy bar that limits how much you can do before it has to refill. The different enemy types test your skills in different ways, and often have enemies work in tandem with one another to create a challenging combination. There's also 2 boss fights, obviously, that are a good challenge as they require you to pay attention to their patterns and use your dodge effectively. The checkpoints are far apart, so you have to use your 5 health potions wisely before you're able to replenish them at the next rest area. The health potions fill your health as well as stop any status effects. If you're looking for a simple Souls-like game with a solid combat system, then I recommend Metamorphose. Die Again is a top-down shooter with a unique mechanic centered around death. The core of the gameplay is classic top-down shooter action with a good variety of weapons. However, if there's an enemy within your red circle, you can kill yourself to move into their body, so you can time your suicide based on the enemies around you. The same suicide mechanic goes for enemies as well though. If they're inside your circle and they kill themselves, you'll die since they take over your body. You can also just kill enemies regularly by shooting them as long as they're outside of your red circle, because if they're inside your circle, it'll just kill both of you. Levels will either have you kill all of the enemies or just reach an endpoint. Enemies have different colored gas masks, and if you take control of an enemy, you can walk past people with the same colored gas mask unnoticed, which adds a bit of a stealth element. The game is really ugly and the story feels like an acid trip, but the core gameplay is really solid. If you're looking for a top-down shooter with a unique concept, then I recommend Die Again. To Hell With It is a hack-and-slash game where you climb up Hell's corporate ladder to retrieve your cat from the underworld. You fight your way through levels of demons with a light and heavy attack, as well as 2 different abilities you can equip. Though you do get more options for abilities as you progress. You also have a dodge that you heavily rely on during combat. Most enemies will telegraph when they're about to attack with a symbol above their head so you know when to dodge. If they turn orange, it means you can't stop their attack animation and have to dodge out of the way since they will charge at you. The combat is really engaging since you're balancing which ability to use on what enemy, all while dodging around. Even though the combat is solid, there aren't many sound effects during combat and the soundtrack doesn't fit very well, which makes attacks feel less impactful than they should. You can buy items from vending machines like health potions and attack items to make combat easier. Each level has a different theme to it with a fitting boss at the end, though the bosses were a bit easy. Regardless, if you're looking for a hack-and-slash game with great combat and a funny premise, then I recommend To Hell With It. Merlot Above the Sun is an action-adventure game where you play as Merlot in an effort to save her home and her forest friends. You progress through this beautifully saturated foresty world that's tied together with ancient-looking robot technology. You battle various robots in arena-style combat and have to try and push the robots off the edge of the arena with your attack. Even though the game is really easy overall, the introduction of new enemy types and different arena hazards kept me engaged. Like this knight that's only activated if he has an energy ball by him to give him power, or this arena with rising and falling platforms and a spike pit. There's light platforming sections in between combat that help give the game a better flow. About halfway through the game you get a dash, which keeps combat from being too tedious as arenas get bigger and more enemies are on screen at a time. If you're looking for a fun little action-adventure game with a beautiful world, then I recommend Merlot Above the Sun.
But wait, there's more!
3 bonus games! Red is a beat-em-up game where you fight through monsters in the forest in an effort to get to your grandmother. You play as this half-human, half-wolf girl because, furries. You have your standard fighting moves as well as the ability to switch between 3 different forms that all play differently and have different specials. You have your regular human form where you have a scythe, this other human form where you have a gun, and lastly your wolf form that lets you do flurry attacks. And each form has their own health and special gauge meter. If you're looking for a beat-em-up game with excellent combat and a great style, then I recommend Red. Echoes Plus is a fast-paced arcade twin-stick shooter where you progress through waves of endless asteroids and enemies. You start out as a pretty weak ship, but as you destroy asteroids and enemies, you get upgrades to make your ship shoot more bullets and collect bombs which you can use to clear the screen. It gets really intense as there gets to be an overwhelming amount of things on screen, all trying to destroy you in different ways. If you're looking for an addicting, fast-paced twin-stick shooter, then I recommend Echoes Plus. Shotgun Witch is a bullet hell arena shooter where you fight off waves of enemies from hell. You have a shotgun that has 2 shots in it before you have to reload. Enemies kill you in 1 hit, causing you to restart the wave you were on. There's 5 waves of enemies with a final boss at the end, so it's pretty short, though it is challenging because of the amount of bullets on screen and these pumpkin guys that just throw their explosive head at you. If you're looking for a fun bullet hell game, then I recommend Shotgun Witch. Those were the top 5 free action games on Steam you didn't know about. Part 2. I'll have part 1 to this video as well as my playlist of free Steam games you don't know about linked in the description. Thanks for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with this ongoing series.